Thank you for joining us once again on the State of Freedom.
The State of Freedom is a listener-supported podcast. We are committed to pursuing the truth about policymaking, regulatory actions, and political maneuvers in Louisiana and at the national level that stand to impact your freedoms.
Please support the State of Freedom by becoming a monthly supporter or member of the Warrior Circle, or by advertising your business, your nonprofit, or your event with us. Go to freedomstate.us. We are bypassing the mainstream media cartel and the establishment political parties in Louisiana and coming directly to you, spreading the uncensored voice of freedom across Louisiana and beyond. Tigerland Properties. These are licensed professional realtors in Louisiana, commercial, residential, investments, whatever you choose to do. These people, whether you're buying, whether you're selling, whether you want to invest, these people are the best in the business. They really are. Tigerland Properties, mainly they work in the Boot area of Louisiana, down in South Louisiana, but truly you could not be in better hands if you're buying or selling commercial, residential, or investing than Tigerland Properties. I encourage you to call them 225-320-3004. You'll want to make sure you're in good hands with commercial, residential, real estate, or investment. And they are the best.
The first two episodes of the Landry Review are out. We looked at the early hope and the first signs of broken promises. Then the 2024 crime session that put 17-year-olds in adult facilities while leaving parents and root causes largely untouched. That crashed, by the way, mid-session yesterday, and we're still working to recover the airing of that. Hopefully we'll be getting that to you later today. And this morning, we'll touch on one other pillar of Governor Landry's record, the tax session that was hailed as such a giant win, but we're asking the question, have taxpayers in Louisiana felt any real relief in their pocketbooks? I call it a game of three-card Monte. I called it that at the time, where the politicians used a sleight of hand, the game was rigged, and the dealer wins. We, the people, lose. This morning, the lines are open. It's Warrior Wednesday. If you are a warrior, we would love to hear from you. Call or text in with your questions and thoughts. And if you are not yet a warrior, but you want to join the conversation, you can join the Warrior Circle right now at join.freedomstate.us. You'll get the number to the Freedom Phone right in your registration confirmation, so you can call or text us in today right after signing up. Everyone is welcome to watch, to get involved, and to chime in through the chat. So we want to know from you. What stood out to you about what we've covered? What still needs to be said? And of course, as always, we're open to other topics as well. This is the State of Freedom. It's 10 a.m. Central. It's August 12th on Wednesday. It's Wednesday, yeah. Warrior Wednesday. I'm Danielle Walker, and I'm joined by my friend and co-host, the watchdog in chief of Louisiana Citizen Advocacy Group, Christopher Alexander, and we're coming to you live on Voice of the People USA TV and radio network, on Rumble, X, YouTube, and Facebook. Do us a favor. If you're on Facebook, send us a star, send us a thumbs up, share it with your friends. Just go in there and hit it and say share all, and let's see what happens. We're growing by leaps and bounds because of you, and we can't thank you enough. If you're on YouTube or Rumble, give us a like. It doesn't cost you anything to hit that thumbs up button, but it helps us out a lot, and we really appreciate it. And you can always catch us later on audio only, Spotify and Apple. If you are looking for yesterday's episode on Spotify or Apple, it's not there either, because we're still trying to work with customer support from our live stream software. So anyway, bear with us on that. Morning, Chris.
Well, good morning, Danielle. Yesterday and today, it's like a DDOD with DW, double dose of delight with Danielle Walker.
Oh, goodness. Well, I don't know what I did to deserve that. Somebody must have put some extra sugar in your coffee.
All you got to do is show up, baby.
Well, let me read the scripture of the day and we'll get started. We had a couple things we wanted to talk about this morning about our views our reflections back to the end of 2024's special tax session. So we can get into that shortly. But the scripture today is Galatians chapter 4, verse 7. And it says, let's see. Now we are no longer living like slaves under the law, but we enjoy being God's very own sons and daughters. And because we're His, we can access everything our Father has, for we are heirs of God through Jesus the Messiah. And when we put our faith in Jesus, receive Him, and experience salvation, our legal status in the kingdom changes from slave under the law, a slave to the law, and a slave to sin, to a son or daughter of the Most High King. We go from being confined by narrow and rigid rules to being totally and completely set free. Before, where we needed to be our behavior to be guided by rules, now we have Holy Spirit living inside of us, the same Spirit that raised Christ from the dead, and He guides us in the way that we should go, saying, "This is the way, walk in it." So Philippians 4:19 teaches us that whatever we have need of, we can ask God, and He will richly supply according to all of His riches and glory. And He also calls us to live boldly and freely before Him. I love the way the Message Bible puts it in 1 Peter 5:7. It says, "Live carefree before God. He is most careful with you." And I get the sense this morning that many of us need to take a deep breath. You want to lead us in a deep breath, Chris? Very good. And I just and I just ask Holy Spirit on behalf of all who are watching and listening right now to give each of us a fresh revelation today of our freedom through Christ and our access to the Father and all that He has, because we are joint heirs with Christ. Amen.
Amen, Danielle. Amen. And, periodically you really speak to, sort of an inveterate struggle that I've had, because my background and my perception of religion and really of God was sort of shaped and formulated by the relationship that I had with my father. You tend to sort of project the image of your own paternal authority figure in your life, particularly from a young age, on to God. And while my father was a very, very good man, he was extraordinarily rigid in his approach and had a very, very volatile temper. And so it could be very punitive and sometimes very arbitrarily punitive. And he acknowledged that later in his life and, sought forgiveness for it. And we had a very good relationship when my dad passed away. Some of these early psychic impressions that you get in life can be very difficult to shed. And so my image of God for many years was, this stern authoritarian figure in the sky that was watching my every move and just waiting to lower the boom on me. It's very painful and very difficult to live that way. And so I've, through a lot of prayer, I've made good progress, I think, in changing the image that I have of God and sort of transforming the relationship that I have with God. It's an everyday process because it can be difficult sort of to uproot these early impressions that you get in your mind. But I have made a lot of progress. So I guess my suggestion today would be for anyone who does view God for whatever reason as, an authoritarian, punitive figure, not saying that God cannot be punitive. Clearly, it is theologically sound to say that God can punish and does punish, but I don't believe that God is inclined to punish those who struggle and make mistakes and humbly try to return to the cross, seek forgiveness, and move forward. I don't believe that God has a punitive heart for people like that. I think his stern justice, and even harsh justice is reserved for those generally either in positions of great authority who abuse their power and or those who deliberately turn against him and really assume the role of God in their own minds. I think it's pride and arrogance and hubris for which the great weight of God's punitive justice is reserved. I don't believe that it is reserved for people like us. In fact, in the scripture, I love the scene in the scripture, Danielle, and you probably know this even better than me, the scene in the scripture where the person says, "Have mercy on me, O Jesus, a sinner. Have mercy on me, O Jesus, a sinner. And Lord, I'm trying to believe. Help me to believe." I think it's those humble expressions of faith that God's far from punishing, I think he smiles upon. So I just hope that everybody will today recognize, at least in your minds, that God is not out to get us. He's not out to hurt us. He's out to bless us and to liberate us and to show us an abundance of mercy. And that I just felt impelled to share that this morning.
Yeah, it's a good word, Chris. And the scriptures say very clearly, punishment is reserved for the wicked. Punishment is reserved for the wicked, and the Lord disciplines those he loves. So there's discipline when we get off track, but that's very different than punishment. What's the passage? I believe it's in Hebrews. I think it might be in Hebrews 12, where it talks about the difference that discipline of sons looks like versus what you're talking about, the punishment, Chris. And so
Very much so. I love that. I love that, Danielle.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you about this, and I know that we need to get into our issues of the day, but this is something that I wanted to ask you about, and I bet other people think about this because I know I have. Sometimes I struggle with the idea that in the scripture it says that once God has forgiven us, there is no more record of our transgression. As far as the east is from the west, does he remove our sin from us, throws it into the depths of the ocean to be remembered no more. And then there are other parts in the scripture where it says that we'll be held accountable at judgment for everything that we've ever done in our lives. And I have a difficult time sometimes reconciling those two ideas, and that's something that I am exploring in prayer to try to figure that out, because the last thing that I need once I feel like I've been cleansed of sin, at least the sins of today or yesterday, is the fact that I'm going to be surrounded by, a chorus of judgmental entities in heaven, or God going over jot and tittle every mistake that I've ever made in my life. In fact, it horrifies me, scares me to death, frankly. So I'm working on that, praying about that, and I would like to think that the former scenario is what is really true.
Yeah, I need to kind of refresh myself on what I think about that, or what my belief is on that. But the scriptures very clearly say that judgment is reserved for the wicked. So I think the recording, there's the white throne justice. I think when we stand before God, he sees us through the lens of Christ. And so we're perfect and holy in his sight. So he's not going to be condemning us for any of our actions. Now, maybe it will be showing us like opportunities we missed, right? Or it might be, but I think my gist, and people can chat in on this. I'd love to hear other people's perspective. I don't think it's going to be like that. I don't think it's going to be like that. And maybe we'll just plan to pick back up on this, because I don't want to say anything out of turn. I'll need to spend a little more time in the scriptures thinking
Sure.
about that before I
Yeah.
really answer it. But
Yeah.
would love to know what people think in the chat. And I see it looks like the chat's working. Thanks, Katie, for chatting in. And thanks, Blaze, for chatting in on Rumble. Good to see both of y'all. Glad to see that it's working. Christy,
Absolutely. Hey, Katie. Hey, Blaze. Blaze of glory.
that's right. He is a
He
blaze
really
of
is.
glory.
The great thing about Blaze, Danielle, is that I believe he said he's the father of 12, and I am the sixth of 12 children. So it's a unique connection that I have with Blaze LeCount. Absolutely love him.
I love Blaze. I love Blaze. He has Blaze. I know if you're listening, if you're still online, one thing I love about Blaze is that he can talk to anybody, because the Lord has worked in him such patience by having 12 kids
Exactly. Right. Right. And I
that
know that from my own personal experience because my dad used to tell me, Christopher, when I got a little, goes, you know what? You really are an angel. We're all angels of God. I have to tell you, your behavior was often not angelic, but you are an angel of God. So uh, we can all improve. But yeah, Blaze is such an extraordinary person.
yeah,
Well, so is Katie, right?
that's true. Well,
The
yeah,
mother of
Katie,
my kids.
that's right. She's also brilliant. The meme queen
Oh
is
yeah.
Katie.
I can't even ascend to the level of her graphic and artistic talent. I really can't. It's
No,
just
that's true.
amazing to me. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And Katie, if you're listening, I did send you another idea yesterday for a meme, but I don't know if it's feasible. Anyway, we'll see. We'll see. There's a meme coming. There's a meme coming near you, something like
A
that.
meme coming to a bedroom near you,
Yeah, something
Katie
like that.
Alexander.
All right, Chris, what do you want to talk a little bit about the tax session? You and I were trying to remember the timeline this morning.
Yeah.
We knew it happened in 2024, but it wasn't in the early session. It wasn't in the regular session or the early special session. It was a later special session in that November, December timeframe when all that stuff happened. And I don't know. I have a clip here. Do you want me to just go ahead and play that to set us up?
Sure. Yeah. Let's
Is
let's
that
play the
is that a
short
good
clip.
place to start? Okay,
Yeah.
here we go. It's just a short clip of Governor Landry outlining his perspective on the tax session. Here we go.
This tax package is a win for the people of Louisiana. It is a win for the businesses in Louisiana. And it is a win for those looking for a reason to call Louisiana home. Together, we're building a Louisiana that works for everyone, where opportunity isn't just a dream, but a reality for every person, every family, and every business.
So, Danielle, I guess we can assume, and we're supposed to presume in favor of people. And so I will give Governor Landry the presumption, perhaps, that he thinks that this tax overhaul from 2024 was a net win for Louisiana citizens. But at a minimum, I think the verdict is clearly still out on that. The nucleus of the tax overhaul was this, just, in principle. The corporate income tax was entirely eliminated for local businesses, and the individual income tax was reduced to a flat 3% from a graduated rate. Danielle, I don't recall exactly what the graduated rate was, but individual.
And I have
Yeah,
it if you want me to say it.
yeah.
Anywhere
Go ahead and say
from
it.
the lowest end was 1.85, the medium, well, it was 1.85 to 2%, then 3.5 to 4, and 4.25 to 6 were the three tiers.
Okay, so the very top was 6%, the low was about 1.5. So that was eliminated, and now the flat individual income tax rate in Louisiana is 3%. Well, on the face of that, you would say, okay, perhaps that is will result in marginal tax relief for Louisiana citizens. But in order to offset the inventory or the revenue, not inventory, but revenue loss for that, our state legislature, with Governor Landry's support, raised the state sales tax from 0.45% to 5%.
Yeah.
And so, and that is across the board. So now and that was a tax that was supposed to expire in July of 2025. It was supposed to sunset, and we were supposed to have no more sales tax in Louisiana. So now in Louisiana, the combined local and state sales tax rate in Louisiana is almost 11%, and in some places up to 12%. And in addition, in 2024, the sales tax was expanded to include online services, digital software, digital products, and online streaming services. So now we're paying for that, a sales tax for that as well. And so at a minimum, most people say that this was more of a tax swap and that there will probably be minimal, if any, real tax relief for ordinary Louisiana citizens. So that's and another point about this, Danielle, is this: of course, the corporate franchise tax was eliminated entirely, which was a good thing, but
it was an abomination to start with. It shouldn't exist. It should have never existed.
Exactly. And another big thing about it is this: the local Louisiana businesses, second and third, fourth generation Louisiana businesses, the hardware store, the restaurant down the street, they're still paying up, between an 15% inventory tax, local tax, depending on what parish you're in. So basically, they're paying between 8% and 15% of the assessed value of their inventory, whether they sell it or not, just for it to sit on their shelves. This is for local businesses. And also, of course, the sales tax that local businesses are paying. So you contrast that with these massive tax breaks that these multi-billion-dollar out-of-state corporations are getting to come in here and put these data centers and these CCS pipelines in our state. They're paying no inventory tax, no property tax, no sales tax for 20 and 30 years, while Louisiana citizens, small businesses, are assuming the risk of these, the risks of these data centers and these CCS pipelines, environmental health risk, potential contamination of our water aquifers. And there's no guarantee that these big companies are going to be providing any long-term jobs for Louisiana citizens. There's no requirement. And so are we really ultimately benefiting the average Louisiana business and average Louisiana individual taxpayer? Are we really coming out ahead based upon this tax overhaul? And I think the verdict is clearly still out. And for some people, it's in, and it's not a net win. Last point before you respond, Danielle, is this. Take a guess, Danielle, about how much local and state tax revenue.
Oh, you want to put a pin in that? This is Walter calling in.
Yes.
Let's see.
You there?
Walter, are you there?
Hey, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for dialing in.
Hey, thanks for having me.
It's super to have you, Walter. The Walter Rocky Beach.
Yes. So many amazing things happen. You guys, we see each other at the Capitol, passing through. We're never, sometimes we're in the same room, fighting the same fight together. Sometimes you're in a different room, I'm in a different room. So it's been.
Oh, did he cut out? Walter, you there? Oh, hold on. Sorry, it bumped off of the Bluetooth. 1 second. Hey, you there?
That's okay.
Okay, we got you back. We got you back.
Yeah. I'm back. They're on to you guys.
Yeah.
Oh, they are.
Seriously,
they really are, Walter.
With our show crashing yesterday, I was really feeling it. I mean, if anybody is trying to get the second half of the show, you're in good company. We are too. So hopefully we can cover it today.
Oh, believe me. Yeah. So, since I qualified for the second second district U.S. House of Representative. There's my phone going crazy too. A lot of things happened. So one of the things was I had to pay $1,500 to qualify, plus a $25 sign fee. And I'm running no party, and that means no money.
What does that mean, a sign fee, Walter?
I don't know. And I don't even know what this thing is doing
Walter,
to me here.
When you say $1,500 sign fee, are you talking about the fee that you had to pay to get the list of the unaffiliated voters so you could get your signatures together, or what are you talking about there?
I am talking about it costs $1,500 to qualify, actually to buy the pen. That's what I say. The qualifying was free, but to get that pen, it was $1,500. So they automatically charge you a $25 sign fee, recycling fee. So the issue to me is I'm a paramedic, means I don't have any money. I'm, now I'm qualified. It means I don't even have money for signs, but I have to pay this fee, which is ridiculous. We're trying to contest it that day, do an affirmation or something where, I don't have signs. I'm not going to buy a sign. Save me $25.
Yeah. You're running, Walter, just so our viewers will know, you're running in the 2nd Congressional District, right? And that is the district where, who is the incumbent congressman in that district currently?
That's the Honorable Troy Carter. That's his district. So, yeah, before the redistricting, I was in District 2. So now, because of redistricting, and they're finally going to use this map in 2027, the new map. But I'm running in 2026, so the confusion is absolute. The voter registration offices are confused, and when I do look at the new map, I'm even more confused because I'm in Ascension Parish. When you look at the map, I have some friends in Pelican Point, which is on the East Bank. But when you look at the map, it doesn't come over to the East Bank, and they verified it with the new voter registration cards. So I cannot find an exact map. And how do you run in a district that you don't have, or they don't have an exact map?
Wow. What a mess.
I'll see what we can dig up, Walter. I'm looking for it right now. I found a website a couple weeks ago that had what appeared to be some good maps. Now, I haven't looked at them to the extent that you have, obviously. So you may have already tracked this down and found it wanting.
Yeah. So when you look at the Sunshine Bridge, look up north and you'll see where it makes the curve of the Mississippi River, and we're on the right hand side of that. So it's pretty interesting that even the Secretary of State's office, they say, well, you go to the parish websites, they'll have a more accurate map. Our parish in Ascension Parish does not even, I don't even know. Their site's been under construction forever.
Yeah.
And I can't find a map as detailed. It's mostly parish maps.
Wow. And Walter, so it's Troy Carter, who qualified obviously as a Democrat in that district. And who is there a Republican candidate who qualified in that district?
Yes, there's a Republican. Peter, I met him once, great guy, very well spoken. I met him at Woody Jenkins, Ronald Reagan. He had spoke, I think yesterday, but I had other plans. I couldn't be there.
Yeah.
Then we have, I can't remember the Democrat one. And we also have Lisa, which is running as a Libertarian, who I met. She signed my petition paper. But the Democrat, I'm sorry, I can't think of her name, but she ran for mayor against Marino, and now she ran as a Democrat. Now she is a no party.
Got it. So Walter, and I'm asking you this in conjunction with a guest that we had on recently, Chuck Carpenter, who talked about this issue that I'm fixing to tell you about. What were all of the requirements, monetary and bureaucratic requirements, as far as signatures, that you had to satisfy in order to be on the general election ballot in November versus what the Republican and the Democrat candidates had to do? Were the requirements imposed on you more onerous?
So I sort of got ahead of that because Frankie Hires actually has a pretty similar suit. And when I'm speaking to him, he's telling me that, as a no party running for Congress, you can't pay a fee. So I'm like, that's odd. And I couldn't find a fee. So I'm at a bill signing, and Nancy Landry's there, and I go speak to her. And she's like, oh, no, there is. I'm like, might want to check on it. So she deferred. Great person. She deferred it to her legal team, spoke to them and all of that. And a week later, there's a fee. So we got through that as far as qualifying fees. So they did take my money, unlike the no party candidates.
Okay, what was it the same? Was it the same fee for you that the Republican and the Democrat candidate had to pay?
I am not sure. I would say yes, because I think the suits are starting to hit, and I didn't really look, but I know they all paid $25 sign fee, whether they have a sign or not.
And
right. So they accepted a fee from you in lieu of your having. So did you have to go get any signatures in order to qualify?
I started out as getting the signatures. So that means that'll save me money,
right?
Because I just don't have money. And when I did that, in some places, we had at least a 40% rejection on those signatures. So let me put it this way. I can request a petition to governor to be recalled. I can sign it and send it back. That's good. But in my case, I needed a currently registered. They didn't have to live in my district. That's one of the other things that they forego on. And then they had to match the database, the voter registration, which we know is not up to date. And so they would kick it out for any little thing. If you didn't put a 0 and a 7 for a month, or the year, a 4-digit year, they would kick that out.
Are you kidding me? Because this was by hand. I signed your petition, Walter, when you came to Houma.
Yes.
And so this is my point. When we had Chuck Carpenter on last week, he said that only no party registered voters in I guess he's running for Senate, so it didn't have to be his district, were allowed to sign his petition. Do you think of the 40% that was kicked out, were they kicked out at all because they were registered as a Republican or a Democrat and not no party, or was that not a factor for you?
That really wasn't a factor because I had to school them when I was turning in the signatures, and they had to verify that. Yes, because a lot of them at the offices thought that the people needed to be in the district. So
yes. But the reason, Walter, let me say this, Walter, the reason why Danielle's asking you that is that Chuck Carpenter is, a hopeful for the U.S. Senate. He was talking to us about that. He's an unaffiliated voter like you. And he said that the requirement for him was that, well, of course, he had to get 2,500 signatures, and they could not be registered, or the people who signed, the signatories, could not be registered Republicans or Democrat. They had to be unaffiliated voters, and he had to therefore pay $5,000 to the Secretary of State's office in order to get the list of unaffiliated voters in Louisiana, so he would know which signatories could sign his petition. And so we're saying that wasn't your experience.
No, that wasn't my experience. I had to make sure that the voter registration office in each parish understood that's what was happening, because they would ask me and I would actually teach them. And some of them weren't authorized for the new map yet others were authorized for the new map. So some of these places were acting as if the new map wasn't a factor.
Wow.
So,
which was,
Just- So
so
Walter, what I'm getting,
we're
what I'm getting
learning.
at here, what I'm getting at here, and I just think it's important to clarify this because you're running for the U.S. Congress as an unaffiliated candidate, and Chuck Carpenter's running or wants to run for the U.S. Senate as an unaffiliated candidate, and I'm just trying to get a sense of whether or not the requirements that have been imposed upon him in order to be able to run 2,500 signatures of unaffiliated voters to get him on the ballot, plus the normal $3,500 filing fee, plus the $5,000 fee to the Secretary of State to get the list of unaffiliated voters to know who to get the signature. Are you saying that that was not your experience? You
No.
were able to either, in other words, you could have, instead of getting the signatures, you could have just written a check to the Secretary of State's office or whomever and gotten on the ballot in the general election, just like the Republican and the Democrat candidate?
Yes.
ooh,
Okay. And it would have been the same amount. You would have paid the same amount that they had to pay.
I need to confirm that because, this is something that's new to them, new to
Yeah.
me.
So I just
So
find
I
it
am
interesting that,
qualified.
yeah, I find that interesting that there would be apparently a discrepancy. And Danielle, I wish you would weigh in on this,
yeah.
a discrepancy about, between the requirements for U.S. congressional race versus a U.S. Senate race for unaffiliated candidates.
Well, it just sounds like the state is headed for yet another loss in court. That's what it sounds like.
Oh yeah, there's going to be a lot of taxpayer money going out, and it's
So you're saying when you say a
frustrating.
loss in court, Danielle, a loss in court, you mean because not only does it appear that Chuck Carpenter's being discriminated against by the duopoly that exists, the establishment Republican and Democrat machine in Louisiana, but also perhaps discriminated against, being treated differently than unaffiliated voters for other races are being treated.
Other
I mean,
federal
unaffiliated
races.
candidates for other
Yeah.
races are being treated.
Yeah.
Yeah, but just if you wanted to call it a conspiracy theorist, of course we all are, even though we know the truth. Anyways, this was never about. They never considered no party candidates. They only considered Democrat or Republican, and that's the way it was set up. That's why any other party was excluded and not even thought about, because this is what they wanted in the race. They wanted these two people in the race.
Yeah.
And we know
Well,
that.
Of course. Yeah.
Well, Walter, thank you for, and we're going to do a little additional research into this, but it really is meaningful that you would call in because we assumed that the requirements for unaffiliated candidates in national races, whether congressional or U.S. Senate statewide races, were essentially the same in Louisiana. So there appears to be some discrepancy there, but. Thank you for calling in, and I also wanted to tell you thank you for everything that you do in the legislature to support LeCag and also to support the state of freedom. You're truly a great American, and I am from now on. It's not Walter to me; it's Rocky.
It's Rocky. I just love it because whenever I get a phone call from work or whatever, that's like, Walter there, and I can actually say, no, he's not here. But if you call me and you call me Rocky, that's really the people that I need to talk to, and you need to talk to me. So yeah, absolutely use it. And I tell you what, there's so many people coming out of woodwork wanting money, do this, do that, in the old establishment ways. It's just like, I'm a paramedic. That means I don't have any money. I'm no party. I don't have any money. So
Yeah.
this is truly grassroots because I got so much support for people offering and volunteering, like kind donations, all of this ridiculous stuff.
Well,
Why do we even have to pay?
I'm just so thankful that you're in the race. You have a very powerful voice, I think, of authentic grassroots conservatism, and we're gonna. I'm going to talk to Danielle, the director, the boss, about having you on at some point in the future to talk more specifically about your race. We've got a few more people waiting in the chat here. But God bless you, sir, and look forward to seeing you and talking with you soon.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for
See you
calling in,
later.
Rocky.
I love it. Bye-bye.
All right, bye. So great, Chris. We have to pursue that with the congressional race being different than the Senate race, and it makes perfect sense because I don't think anything changed with respect to the way that those congressional races were handled whenever they did neither the redistricting nor the special the primary.
Right.
Okay, here we go. Blaze is calling. Let's see. Hey, Blaze.
Hi.
Thanks for calling in. How are you this morning?
Doing well, thank you. Doing really well. I appreciate the kind words at the beginning, guys, about me. I'm actually very blessed, to have a wonderful family, and grew up within a good family. Kind of, Chris, in line with what you said, we all have our challenges growing up, and the decisions to have large family these days, puts a little more pressure on us. But I think those challenges are what help us to improve and to grow. No doubt about it.
Blaze, you're 100% right. And you get looked upon. I was just, the 6th of the 12, and I'm sure you felt the same way. Sometimes people look at you and say, my God, is your mom ever going to, they used to say, is your mom ever going to stop having kids? I said, I don't know. That might be a question for her. I'm 12 years old. But I'm just glad she didn't stop before 6.
There you go.
That's right. I always told my mother-in-law that. I said, wait, where did you want me to stop at? I'm not sure about this.
I love it. But that's, I feel like I do have a very powerful connection with you, Blaze, because of the large families, that, well, you're the father of, and I'm one of the kids of 12. I think that's just powerful. We could have long conversations about that.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, so some of the subjects y'all started off with, talking about the governor, I think we have to, and I think you admitted that there's a lot of good things going on. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But one of them that I think we need to continue to put some focus on is the transparency, just letting us know what's going on. Look, we know that there's some things that some of these companies that are coming in that they have to keep secretive. I understand that part, but as for their intentions and how it's going to affect the communities, that's important for us to be transparent with that. I did a lot of work with some bigger companies, and look, their reputation means a lot to them, and how they're going to affect our communities. And I think that's one thing that we would expect from our governor is, I know there's always some distractions and things that we do, but at the minimum, we need to know, how these big corporations are going to affect our communities, whether it's dealing with our water, dealing with our electricity, anything like that. We need to know how it's going to affect us. And we would expect all of our government officials, elected officials, to please let us know. I always try to get information when I go to the State Central Committee, to see what people are talking about and how they're feeling about things and what we need to be doing. And it's a smorgasbord, I can tell you that, in talking to different people about some of these subjects. But that's what I think, at this point. I know we got some problems with taxes. One of the things I remember one of our legislators talking about years ago was how much of our money was already dedicated. There was no way for us to fool with the budget very much because so much of it was dedicated. And I think, we're going to have to look for some kind of balance between all of that stuff. We want certain money to go to education, but is it excessive? Can they spend it all, or are they not spending it properly, So
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things in dealing with the governor right now. I want to ask him for more and more transparency.
Yeah, I think that's super fair, Blaze. And when you're talking about the dedicated funds, that's a huge problem with the construct of our budget, and it's embedded in the Constitution, I believe, Chris, that there's only certain amount of the funds or certain categories of funds that can be worked with, and the legislature was very sneaky when they did it. I believe the only things that you can cut are like healthcare and education, right? The two most heart rendering pieces of the entire budget. So that was a setup by design, in my view.
I think you're right. Before you, I think that's exactly right, Danielle. When our earlier caller, Walter, just before he called in, Blaze, I want to get your opinion on this. Uh, I was about to talk about the close to $2 billion aggregate tax subsidies over the next couple of years that these big multi-billion-dollar corporations, data centers, CCS companies are going to get on inventory, sales taxes, property taxes that are simply, they're just going to get subsidy. They're not going to have to pay, and apparently it's going to be about $2 billion that the state and local communities would otherwise be getting in taxes from these big corporations. And at the same time, local Louisiana businesses and ordinary taxpayers still have to pay, sales tax, inventory tax. Some businesses, 8 to 15% of the assessed value of their inventory, whether they sell it or not. So, do you see a problem with, giving these massive tax subsidies to these massive corporations and leaving local businesses and communities really with the tax bill?
Well, my opinion about that is that I think each one of them needs to be looked at a little differently. And again, I'm going to come back to the word I just mentioned, balance. There's got to be some kind of balance in this, because we can't. You're right. We still got to take care of our roads and the utilities around all of these businesses, whether they come to us or not. But if we're going to give them that much tax incentive to come in, and we don't get any of the other benefits that we would normally get off of these taxes, then we're hurting ourselves. Yeah. But again, we got to come back to, it's got to be a balanced thing. And that's where the transparency comes in. We need to be transparent about some of this stuff and said, you know what, I think instead of giving them $5 billion of benefit, can we agree to 2.5? I don't know what it is, so we can use some of that money to keep developing the area around it. So I think that's what it gets down to. I mean, look, our family business benefited from the inventory tax deduction. That was fantastic. I can remember always having to sell down the inventory at the end of the year so you wouldn't have to pay so much taxes, right? That's what you do in these businesses at the end of the year. So look, those were benefits to everybody, but these big corporations, we got to have a little more transparency, and then we got to make decisions. And I think it ought to come to a vote sometimes, depending upon how much we're talking about. We might have to come to a vote of the people to get the proper balance between these tax incentives and taking care of business in our communities.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right, Blaze, because we would be having vastly different outcomes if these discussions were happening at the parish council meeting instead of behind closed doors, and then we find out about it when they're reporting on the news that Meta's coming to town or SpaceX is coming to town. To me, the way that that's going down, and people find out that they're going to be, their family land, their hunting land, their farmland is the target area, and they've had no say in it, even though they've paid taxes there for decades or longer. It's completely inappropriate. It's a complete slap in the face. It's a betrayal of the people.
And look, I understand that we got to have some kind of secrecy around some of the proprietary processes, but a lot of this stuff is not. Yeah. And that's what we're negotiating.
Yeah.
Blaze, you're exactly right, Blaze. And just to clarify for our viewers, NDAs in Louisiana are customary. They've always been accepted. They're a normal part of corporate business negotiations, and everybody understands that trade secrets, intellectual property, and that sort of thing has to be the subject of an NDA. There's no question about that, but that's absolutely not what we're talking about here. I've had a chance to look at some of these NDAs, both on the state and local level that have been signed. These are broad-based NDAs that absolutely cloak these processes in secretly and prohibit our elected representatives, local and state, from even being able to talk about any aspect of these deals. So there's a massive difference between what we're talking about here and the NDAs that you're talking about. And I just wanted to clarify that. And you're so right about the transparency part of it. I don't believe there's anything for which a solution is not available if the taxpayers and the people who are going to be most directly affected by these projects are included in the process, and we are currently not, and it's truly unfortunate.
And I might add one thing to that. We get pushback that, oh, the whole response has been so negative. You need to, have a more productive, positive view of this. Well, then make us part of the process. If our only thing is, if our first finding out about this is we're automatically on the defense because our property's been targeted or our neighborhood's been targeted for something that we've had no say in, we've had no opportunity to be productive. We have now come to the fight. And that's what they're up against. That's what the government has put itself in the position of, because that's where they've placed us.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And because look, we want business. We all want to grow business. We want to look for good businesses to bring in. And we want to be fair to all the landowners and make sure everybody's got a voice to some extent. And when some of these decisions are made before we even get to look at it, it's just not fair. It's just not fair to anyone. And it causes distrust within our legislature when we have to dig this stuff up and find out after the fact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with that. 100%.
And it creates, that's exactly right, Blaze. I can't think of any way, if our government, local and state, are trying to create greater mistrust of government, greater skepticism about government, I can't think of a better way to do it than to cloak what should be public deals, public tax dollars, public land, public zoning, all the rest of it, under this veil of secrecy where we find out about these things almost after the fact. That's a good way to create broad-scale mistrust of government, Blaze.
Yeah. So look, overall, I think, the whole bureaucracy, we need to continue to talk to our legislators, talk to our local representatives, and just, ask them to continue to evaluate these situations. And as they get more information, just let us know. I think our groups are honest groups who are trying to get information out to as many people as possible. Look, in the past, we what you do, watch the local news channel to get information, and I don't know if it was right. We got a lot more people doing digging and doing more research now, and I think we have a lot more information available to us, and we just need to continue to communicate that to our residents and people that we care about in the community.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think you're right, Blaze. And I also think that the ongoing communication with our legislators is vital, because they need to feel the way we're feeling. They need to really understand on a firsthand basis, not necessarily through Facebook, right? They need to understand in a person-to-person conversation the way that we're receiving this information, the way that it's impacting our families and our communities. And when they do, I think it has a little bit different impact than kind of the Facebook wars or, whatever we see, that flares up when people start taking things personally whenever, of course, everyone's taking it personally if their land is being targeted, if their community is being targeted for something they didn't have any say in. And so I think, maybe just a reminder to all of us that the person-to-person conversations, the humanizing of this whole thing is what's going to be really important, is what's going to get us the best solution. Doing it all in the social media sphere is not going to be the most productive. So for the legislators that are willing to have the conversation, let's have the conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, good. Yeah.
Well, Blaze,
Good
God
point.
bless you, man. You have any final comments?
Yeah, I guess I'd like to just finish up with asking everyone to take the time to make those phone calls. I always like to ask some of our representatives, how many phone calls does it take to change your mind? Is it going to take 20? Or is it going to take 25, or is it going to take 100, And we might be that one phone call that might make the difference to get them to start considering that, well, maybe I ought to be a little more, maybe I need to switch my stance on something, So I just want to encourage everyone to please take the time to make that phone call. Just takes a few minutes. Sometimes we know exactly what we're talking about. Sometimes we don't. But look, the phone call is worth the time.
Yeah,
Okay.
Absolutely.
I agree.
And we've
Well-
demonstrated, Blaze, that it works. That it works when it's done in sufficient numbers. No question about that. Thank you, Blaze, for supporting the State of Freedom and for supporting LeCag. It's your effort and your alliance is invaluable to us. So God bless you, sir.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, guys. God bless.
God bless you, Blaze. Talk to you soon. All right. Well, we got
Danielle, I want to make one point about what you said during the call with Blaze about the
Sure.
the social media stuff, and
Yeah.
I totally agree with you that social media wars going back and forth and these arguments that people get into, I think that they're of minimal usefulness, which is the very reason why I and LeCag, and I think you as well, with the State of Freedom, very rarely engage in long-term back and forth with people who comment on our social media posts, because you make a comment, you make your point clear, but it's unproductive to get into these spats, and I see it all the time on social media.
Yeah.
You rarely win arguments on social media. On the other hand, I do believe that increasing the broad reach of our social media platforms is highly valuable and
Yeah.
highly effective. So I think there is a distinction to be made there.
Well, I agree with you, and I think the purpose that we're using social media for is to raise awareness, and it is not necessarily to try and convince. Our target is to raise awareness, right? If we want to make a difference with certain legislators, by and large, I think we pick up the phone. If we think we can make a difference. If we don't, if it's been proven that our phone call is gonna, be a waste of time, we're not making it.
True. And we have, and we do. There's no question about that.
Yeah.
But there's also something to be said for their awareness that we have the capacity to make tens of thousands of Louisiana voters aware of something that they've done as a matter of public record in a matter of minutes.
Yeah.
And that is important for them to know, that kind of exposure, the carrot and the stick. But I agree with you to keep an open line of dialogue, Danielle, and to work with them directly when we can. Yeah, that's very powerful.
Yeah. And what else was I going to say earlier? I had some other point before the call-in started that I wanted to make. Well, I did want to just make the point, you were talking about the digital products that were also starting to be taxed via sales tax that had previously been exempt. But there's also manufacturing equipment and some I just pulled it up, like industrial and agricultural products. So to me, a lot of these things may be impacting some of the kinds of industries, homegrown industries that we have. You would think like your car mechanic or the person who's got a decent sized farm. of any kind, any kind of mechanized agriculture, those taxes are hitting the people at home. And that's something you and I were talking about before we came on. You were talking about grocers and these businesses, these local businesses that have been here for a generation or generations that support a local community are getting no tax breaks, no tax benefits. I mean, Blaze was talking about his personal family business, their experience with the inventory tax. So, I don't know that the governor or the legislature can take it personally when we say, hold on, who are you serving here? Why are you giving all of this away to these massive companies that have more money than the GDP of our entire state? Seriously, whenever we at home are struggling, how is that fair?
How is that fair? How is that fair? I got a text from Tom Spradling, Danielle, whom I know from up in Shreveport, and he said, it looks like a complete double standard. The 0.45% sales tax we paid was supposed to expire,
Right.
And instead of letting it expire, they raised it to 5%, and now it's even includes our streaming services. So we have to pay the highest combined sales tax in America, while the politicians give multi-billion-dollar tech companies a 30-year total exemption on taxes on the same type of equipment. So they basically are getting a free ride and we're paying their bill. That's Tom Spradling from up in Shreveport, just a text message he sent me.
Hi, Tom. Thanks for tuning in. It's an excellent point. It's an absolutely excellent point. And I think that needs to be put on a Facebook post, Chris. Maybe Tom will let us attribute it to him.
Maybe so. I also want to, if we don't have anybody waiting right now, Danielle, I wanted to mention also, because you and I talked about this pre-show, there was a major push in 2026, as you know, Brian Fontenot, to stop local governments from slipping these local millage increases and tax increases and passing them during low turnout off-cycle elections, where people where 50 people or 100 people show up to vote, most of whom work for the local government and directly benefit from these tax increases. They're the only ones who show up to vote. Most of the citizens don't even know about it. And so Representative Fontenot wanted to make sure that any of these local tax increases were put on the ballot when there were other major elections there, presidential or governor's elections, congressional elections on the ballot. But it failed. It failed. So as it stands now, the local governments and local bureaucrats can still sneak these tax hikes onto local ballots. And again, so we have to constantly be policing that to see when they're going to be trying to raise local taxes, while again, the big tech gets the 30-year sales tax and inventory tax exemptions locked in. It just seems like there's a massive double standard here.
There is a huge double standard. And the other part of that, Chris, that we've honed in on a number of times, but when you read the tax proposal on your Go Vote app, for instance, it's almost incomprehensible. You basically need like 3 different law degrees to be able to understand what in the world they're trying to tell you. Are you raising my taxes? Are you lowering my taxes? Are you sending my taxes through a loop and then sending them back to me? I can't understand what you're saying. And like, for instance, in Terrebonne, I don't even know if it was all of Terrebonne. I think it was just like my little community. We had a proposed millage for the fire department. Well, they said it was extending the the fire department. So, you feel like you need to support the fire department. Well, you kind of read the fine print and they're like, well, actually, this is so tricky. So y'all watch out for this, because I'm sure they're pulling this crap all over the state. It's an extension of the existing millage now through 2027 or 2028 with an increase in 2028. So they use just the beginning language on the app and on the button, right in there. It's just an extension so you can keep your fire department. But whenever you scroll down, oh no, it's an increase. It's an increase.
After a certain period of time,
Yeah.
it goes up.
Yeah.
But the voter often doesn't know that. They're
Exactly.
perhaps grudgingly voting simply for an extension. Okay, I don't really want to do this, but I know we need this service.
Yeah.
But in reality, what it does, at some point, it's going to be raised automatically without the necessity of another vote.
Correct.
Yeah, that's sneaky.
It is
Sneaky stuff, Danielle.
It's super dirty. It's super dirty. And I know our dollars are worth less now than ever, right? Of course, because of inflation, because of the constant production and printing of paper money. Look, we're paying enough. We're paying enough, and the government needs to stink and figure it out. That's what I want to say. If you go to Florida, you know what you're going to be so struck by, Chris? If you're driving in Florida with a cup of coffee in your hand,
What?
no problems. No problems. You're not going to spill your coffee on yourself. You're not, because the roads are so smooth in Florida the whole way. That was the number one thing I noticed when I was in Florida. I was like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I can drink coffee and ride in the car at the same time. Not so here. Not even
love it.
close. Our
love
tax dollars are not being well used.
They're
so
not.
what I would
yes.
say is that the priority of this government needs to be figure it out. Do
Yeah.
something to really deal with the fraud. I don't care if it's your cousin. I don't care who you have to upset, which contracts need to be broken, because I'm telling you, this stuff is going to get exposed. It's either we may expose it, I don't know. Someone will expose it at some point. So the right thing to do is the government needs to take a strong, hard look at every single contract, at every single expenditure. I have said, and I think you agree with me, Chris, every single dollar that's being sent to so-called nonprofits from the state budget needs to be cut off like a stinking guillotine. It absolutely needs to be cut off. I am not sending my money to so-and-so's foundation to do God knows what, which is really self-enrichment. You have to look no farther than Libs of TikTok, which is basically putting Louisiana on the front page every single day for some kind of fraud. Okay? So we need to get our house in order. And that starts with we're paying too much in taxes, and we need the government to prove to us that you deserve any of our money.
Absolutely. How about a 5-year moratorium, Danielle, even if it's not permanent, a 5-year statutory moratorium on one taxpayer dollar going to any NGO in Louisiana until they get their books in order, until they determine where this money exactly is going, until there's a mechanism of required accountability for the NGOs receiving this money, because there's no accountability. They say this is what the project is, this is what we're supposed to be doing, but they don't have to show measurable results. They don't have any metrics that they have to meet in order to receive this taxpayer money, these NGOs. So I think there should be a moratorium on it until we get our ducks in a row. It's our money. It's not their money.
Am I remembering correctly that you may have mentioned to me that some of these foundations are literally owned and operated by members of the legislature?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Katie mentioned to me that Cleo Fields, most recently, it was either $500,000 or $1 million for some NGO that he has. God only knows what it does. And, even if the stated purpose of the NGO is good and laudable, it doesn't matter if there are no enforceable metrics, if they have to show no measurable progress. Okay, here's what you say the purpose of your NGO is. Well, 6 months from now or a year from now, we're going to require you to give us a report to show specifically where this money went and what measurable results that are positive were achieved.
That's not even good enough. That's not even good enough, Chris. It is not a core function of our government to fund these organizations. If these organizations are so important, so vital to our community, then let the people in that community support the dang organization. I'm not going to. I don't want to.
So so basically, and I just want to make sure I understand this correctly. any taxpayer dollars should go only to essential functions of government, and those
Yes.
functions should not be farmed out to an NGO. They should be performed directly by our government agencies, who are directly accountable, at least the departments or the elected officials for whom they work, who are directly accountable to the citizens.
That. If someone can give me an example of an NGO that provides a needed service to the state, maybe I'll change my mind. But so far, I have yet to come across one. You know,
Well,
I
yeah,
think there are
good
construction
point.
firms who are handling the roads. That's a needed function. Fine. There are punitive damages now in place for allegedly for DOTD to be able to mete out if the contract's requirements are not being met. So I can live with that. I can live with that. But the rest of this garbage needs to just get cut out.
Yes. And, Danielle, as you recall, I believe there was a bill recently, this past session, that I don't know that it would have specifically cut out funding for the NGOs, but it would have put an expenditure limit on discretionary spending in the state. That bill failed. I believe Heather Cloud's bill from 2 years ago that simply required an accounting, a public accounting of all the money that are going to NGOs and that sort of thing. I think that passed, but it's not doing anything to plug up the hemorrhage, to plug up the leak. It's
No, but you know what? We should go into the budget files, Chris, and see what that total is, because I think that would be absolutely untenable if the people of this state understood how many millions of their tax dollars were going to fund NGOs that are run by politicians. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Danielle, would you have I'm asking you this because I'm genuinely interested in your answer. Would your position modify at all if there were grants or monies going to these crisis pregnancy referral centers in Louisiana, these great ladies who testified at the legislature this past session that really run their operations on a shoestring, really through private donations. They get little or no public support at all, yet they perform a great function. Do you think that they should be eligible for tax dollars in the form of grants or anything? Or do you think that everybody should simply be treated the same, and if you're performing a worthy enterprise here, then you should be privately funded through charitable donations?
What's good for the goose is good for the gander. Let's stop having this multiple tiers of recipients from the government. I think if we're going to say no, we need to say no. And then people will have the tax dollars that they didn't send to the state in their pocket to be able to donate to laudable organizations. And
Absolutely.
then the money for these ones that can't stand on their own will dry up. Because I have a feeling that people of this state are propping up corrupt institutions that have no services provided to any people.
And no, again, Danielle, and not even that, but no required reporting.
Right.
No requirement to report concretely and demonstrate that this $500,000 or this $1 million, $5 million, whatever it was, that came directly to your NGO is not padding the pocket of your shareholders or your board members.
Yeah.
And it's actually going to the very purpose of your mission. And not only that, but actually doing something, achieving some results. But
Yeah.
there's so much money going to these NGOs and yet so very little accountability.
Yeah, I can't remember who it was. It may have been Dave Landry called me probably a year or two ago now when we were talking. It was in response to a show we had, and he mentioned to me, I think it was Dave, he'll correct me if I'm wrong, told me about when Daniel Boone was running for re-election, and he went to someone who had been a supporter of him in the past, and the guy said, "No, I'm not voting for you." And Boone was kind of shocked, and he said, "Well, I don't understand why." And he said, "You voted to use my tax dollars to rebuild Washington after the fire." And he's like, "Yeah, well, people's houses burned down." And he's like, "I didn't send my tax dollars to Washington for you to determine that these people deserve them. No, they're going to essential functions only." and the people there that need help can get help the way that they can get help. But that's not what the government's essential function is. And so I believe Daniel Boone sent a letter that said, kind of confessing his misstep on that and pledging a new way forward. But that's what our government needs to understand. We are not, you're not there to dole out our candy to every good idea. That's not what you're there for.
And I think you're channeling David Barton, Danielle, right now. The great author of a book that I absolutely love, The Founder's Constitution, Constitutional Bible. And one of the points that he makes is that for the first 150 years or so of our country's history, that is exactly the way it was. That charitable work, people who were in need, and issues in society that required charitable assistance were always done through private individuals, private organizations, and the church. And the church. The government had no role in it for a century and a half in our country's history for the very reason that you just stated. Because no matter how charitable the exercise, no matter how philanthropic or beneficent the exercise may be, it is still the taking of somebody's money by the government and giving it to somebody else, or using it to provide a benefit without the consent of the taxpayer. And I think that is something that is so it's a matter of principle. And of course, once you begin to do that, look where we are now. Look at the precedent.
Yeah, look at the precedent. Exactly. And we could camp out on that all day, but maybe I'll just get into a few of the messages in the chat and we can wrap up for the day. I see one from Debbie she shared earlier. She said, Katie shared this link earlier concerning the hearing with the PSC for a request for transparency about the expected electricity/water needs for the Meta facility. I'm trying to listen to you guys and this hearing. Thanks, Debbie. Appreciate it. So y'all can see the link there in the chat if anybody wants to catch it on YouTube later. And Blaze said, I guess this was about our maybe about our NGO conversation. He says, sounds like another opportunity for transparency. Any assistance we give needs to be vetted. Absolutely. But it also needs to be consented to. And I do not consent.
I didn't think you would. I didn't think you did.
And then over here on Rumble, we have Tom chatting in saying, good morning. And he said that reporting and monitoring these NGOs should be mandatory. Absolutely. At a bare stinking minimum. But I'm ready with the axe. Oh,
no doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt. Can I make one point, Danielle? Well,
go for it.
Or do you want to go to another chat? I just wanted to make a point about going back to these massive tax exemptions that these huge out-of-state corporations are getting to come to Louisiana. The response that the politicians make, and Landry and the rest of them, because I've heard him say it many, many times, is that, this is all about economic development. It's all about economic development and economic growth in Louisiana, and will more than make it up. But one thing we have to point out is specifically with regard to the data centers, these centers, once they're constructed, are highly automated. Yeah. As Kathy Latham said when she was on the show recently, 25, 30, maybe 40 permanent employees, none of whom necessarily have to be Louisiana residents in order to be able to, some people, maybe they come in from out of state, live and work there. But the bottom line is, maybe they create short-term spikes in construction jobs to do the ground level construction work, but very few permanent roles, very few permanent jobs. So there's no guarantee at all that Louisiana citizens are going to see long-term permanent job growth or have long-term job security because of these data centers. So I think it's very, very important to keep that in mind. Where is the real ultimate economic growth for the citizens of Louisiana under this scheme?
Yeah, I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. Debbie's in the chat. She says Cleo's running for Louisiana Senate District 14. She's asking. He's having a fundraiser today in Baton Rouge. Need his NGO info soon. Okay. I bet Katie has it.
Oh, absolutely. At the ready, Debbie.
Yeah. And a couple of announcements. One is I should have an article coming out soon. Chris, you got a preview of it yesterday. I just got to read through it one more time before I submit it, about Louisiana as a dumping ground and the way that this state is being treated, and the fact that we have been moved, or there's a concerted effort, particularly by Governor Landry and the legislature, to move us from a state that was a massive producer to a state that is now basically a trash dump for the world, with carbon, industrial carbon dioxide waste, and now the specter of nuclear waste as well. And those, just so people know, those are not just ours. We're talking about importing other states and potentially other countries' waste to be dumped here in our state. So you're not mad enough. Sometimes it's just true. We're not mad enough. So keep an eye out for that. If you want to get the latest on all of our musings outside of Facebook, join our Substack. It's free, and if you pay, we would be happy. But you don't have to pay. You get all the articles and the stuff that we're putting out on there, and that's just freedomstate.us. .substack.com. So would love for you to track us there, and we have a little bit more long form stuff on that. And then another announcement, we were supposed to have Drew Hawkins from Gulf State News tomorrow. He has to now attend another meeting. I think he's chasing down the CEO of Entergy to have a discussion. We'll see if Entergy talks, but about the NDAs. So we're gonna reschedule him. So tomorrow is a question mark for what we're going to be talking about. But whatever it is, we know it'll be interesting, and we hope that you will tune in at 10 a.m. And if you have not yet joined the Warrior Circle, we would love for you to do that. As you see, you get the phone number to the Freedom Phone. You can text or dial in on Warrior Wednesdays, and we just have a lot of fun with that. Really appreciate anyone who dials in and everyone who joins. You can do that at join.freedomstate.us, and also always want to put in a plug for LeCag as well. Chris's work is so vital to what we do here, to what we bring forward here. So please go to lecag.org and support him. Art, I can guarantee you that neither the State of Freedom nor LeCag is getting any of the money earmarked by the state budget.
Right, exactly.
So we
Exactly.
actually do need and work from listener support and advocate support, grassroots support. And of course, if you have a small business or a business in Louisiana and you would want to sponsor us either silently or as an advertiser, we would love for you to consider doing that as well. Just drop us a line. You can do that at chris@lecag.org or danielle.freedomstate.us. And I think that's it. I do have a couple of event announcements, unless you have any other announcements, Chris.
Just wanted to make a couple of points, Danielle,
Yeah.
on the upcoming 2027 session. If you need any additional motivation to become a monthly subscriber of LeCag, understand that in the next legislative session is going to be extraordinarily critical when it comes to these non-disclosure agreements and when it comes to these flock cameras, Danielle, which I think you and I should devote an entire show to. They're so alarming and so oppressive, and they're cropping up everywhere. Two critical items of legislation that LeCag is going to be focused on like a hawk relentlessly to try to outlaw these NDAs by government officials in Louisiana, and all these broad-based NDAs, and also to statutorily outlaw these flock cameras, which are grotesque violations of the Fourth Amendment. No question about it. Danny McCormick has some legislation, and I'm talking with him about his legislation. We've got to be able to battle the big special interests who are going to be opposing us in the legislature. Your monthly subscriptions, your financial assistance to LeCag helps us to grow in influence and to make your voice louder and louder and louder. We have one loyalty, or two loyalties: the Constitution and you and your liberty. So please join LeCag. Any monthly amount that you are comfortable with, it's manageable to you. And of course, the media organ of LeCag essentially is the state of freedom. And we are, Danielle, I'm so impressed with how rapidly the state of freedom is exploding across the state of Louisiana. I mean, I'm just absolutely giddy with excitement. So you deserve extraordinary credit for that. As I said earlier, we have the ability now between LeCag and the state of freedom to truly reach a substantial percentage of Louisiana citizens by the press of a button. And I think it's so important to continue to expand that reach.
Yeah, 100%, Chris. And what we're doing here is a service, you and I both think, to one, to the Lord, and two, to the people of Louisiana. We want to make sure that the truth is heard, that the truth has a quarter, and we are not just mere recipients of whatever politicians can dream up and dole out. So we want to make sure that if we know something's going on, that you know something's going on. So please, whatever episodes you've really enjoyed, share them with a couple friends and get them to subscribe. And if you're not yet joined, if you've not yet joined the Warrior Circle, do that so that we can keep this thing going and growing, so we can keep bringing the truth to you.
Absolutely. And it's really excited, Danielle, to keep working with you. I know the sky is the limit. The best days are ahead.
That's right. And just a couple of event announcements, some that we've been plugging lately. All eyes on elections. So We the People Bayou Community down in Houma will be having an event on August 20th. That is, I think that's next Thursday at 6 o'clock. If you are able to join, we'd love to have you. You can just go and RSVP, reserve your seat. It's no charge at wtpbayou.org. And would love to see you there. And then also our friends at Unauthorized are having an amazing event that Chris and I will be covering live. So hope you can attend too. If you can, you can visit stormsummit.us to learn more. And of course, they have a great speaker lineup, and probably the lineup is even expanded from this because this is probably a week or two old. So, but they're great folks on here, and I'm looking forward to seeing all of them. And I think that's it. It sounds like the weed eater is outside my window.
You know that. Is that your cue?
I think we probably have to wrap up so y'all can hear.
Absolutely. Well, God bless you, Danielle. Always great being with you, and look forward to reconvening tomorrow.
Sounds great. See you in the morning. All right.
Red Zeppelin is the best kept secret, but because of us, it's really not a secret anymore. Anybody who has not been to Red Zeppelin on Perkins Road in Baton Rouge, you're truly missing out. The best environment, the best service, and the best pizza in the state of Louisiana. Go to Red Zeppelin today. Tell them the state of freedom sent you. Red Pokey Claw right here in Mid-City in Baton Rouge. It's Baton Rouge's newest claw machine arcade. Jenin absolutely loves it. Packed with Pokemon gear and fun for all ages. You got to go to Pokey Claw. I love it. Jenin wants to go there every Saturday. It's just a wonderful place to go for the family, for the kids.
Thanks for joining us today on the State of Freedom. Any follow-up actions, resources, and links to our sponsors will be in the show notes. All calls to action can be taken at lacag.org. That's LACAG.org.
To learn more about our work, become a monthly subscriber, supporter, or advertiser at freedomstate.us. The State of Freedom, the #1 conservative podcast in Louisiana.